What's up, everyone? I'm going to give you a all-inclusive insight into the data into AMC for today, and it's going to include a plethora of data, probably more than most of you've ever seen, but it's going to provide some insights into the company from a financial standpoint and from a market share exchange standpoint as far as today's data. Let's take a look. It is a lot, just beware. So as far as the volume analysis for today, the average price traded today was $4.97. I guess we'll round that up to 4.98. The underlying buy volume accounted for 25% of the volume with 1.3 million recorded. That should say buy, sell, neutral, and total. Sorry about that. So ignore that. Here, let me just fix that so it doesn't confuse anybody. Buy, sell, neutral, total. Remember, I am retarded. Okay, so the buy volume was 1.3 million that accounted for 25%. The sell volume was 1.3 million, basically the same thing, 25%. Then you have the neutral volume that accounted for roughly 50% of the day's volume, which I think goes hand in hand with the ADF volume that you're going to see in a second. So 50% basically was taken by the neutral volume for a total of 5.3 million volume versus the 10-day rolling average of 19.6 million volume. So way below the 10-day average. The underlying data metrics for today was the open was 4.94 or $4.94. The high of the day was $5.07. The last recorded price as of this data that since I've collected it was $4.99. And the low of the day was $4.91. Not much movement today. The 52-week high is $16.89. The 52-week low is $3.77. The vibration ratio, which is basically the underlying stock's volatility, is 0.0322. Change on the day is 0.4%. Next earnings is supposed to be reported on the 5th of May. The outstanding shares currently are 516,584,478 shares out of the total amount of shares, which sits in at 517,580,416 shares. Already did the underlying data. Technicals, the RSI Minute is 45, RSI Hour is 46, RSI Day is 49, MACD Minute is close to crossing on the minute, hour, and the 1 day, it looks like. EMA 21, 1 minute, 1 hour, and 1 day, roughly all sitting around the $5 mark. And the SMA 1 minute, 1 hour, same thing, pretty close to the $5, but not quite. Next, we have the IV percentile, which is 58.13%, which what that means is that 58.13% of the IV measurements from the last year have been lower than the IV is currently sitting, meaning the IV is just about neutral. It's slightly considered high, relatively speaking, but not much. Technical levels, average resistance is that $4.93 mark. The price is currently above that at $4.99, and then the average support is $4.62, according to recent data. Your analyst ratings, you have a strong buy rating from 0 analysts, you have a buy rating from 0 analysts, you have a hold rating from 3, an underperform rating from 3, and a sell rating from 2. Overall rating came in at underperform from 8 analysts, but really, I mean, it should be underperform/hold because it's equal to the hold amount, but it is what it is. As far as institutions, the increased count is 103. I think the ratio is supposed to be shares. The increased amount of shares is 14.2 million. Decreased number of institutions was 95 for a decreased amount of, looks like 9.4 million. So 14 million in, 9 million out. The new position count, institutional count, was 39 institutions, took in a new AMC position. The new position count change as far as shares is positive 1,672,115 shares. The amount of shares that were sold out from institutions was 3.8 million. The sold out count change or total amount of shares changed, same number, 3.8 million. The total amount of institutional shares comes in at 197,091 shares. Total count change, the ratio went up by 0.3812 or roughly 38%, which is pretty big. The total ratio is 38%. So 38% of AMC's float is owned by institutions. The ratio change came in at 0, and the total amount of institutions holding AMC currently is 426. Short interest, we have 138.8 million, which is basically 20%, a little bit more of the float shorted, with days to cover coming in at 5 and the average share volume being 27 million. Here's when we get into the financial data, which is some pretty important stuff. So earnings after tax comes in at negative 287 million, which is the company's net income after subtracting taxes. The earnings before tax, same thing, company's income before accounting for taxes. Fiscal period 4 was the period that this financial statement was recorded from. The income available to common, excluding extraordinary items, comes in at the same amount of 287.7 million. And then we have income tax, which is 0, the amount of tax owed by the company on its taxable income and things like that. If you would like to pause these slides and read them verbatim, you can. This is just some financial data metrics coming in for AMC. Sorry about the inconsistent commas and spacing and whatnot. I did this kind of quick programmatically. Cost of total revenue, 332 million. Depreciation and amortization is 10.3 million. Or sorry, 103 million. No commas there. Diluted EPS is negative 0.55. Same for the diluted EPS, including extraordinary items. Diluted net income comes in at 287.7 million negative. Diluted normalized EPS, which is the earnings per share of common stock after adjusting for unusual or non-recurring items, comes in at negative 0.832280. The diluted weighted average shares is, again, 516.893 million, which is the total number of outstanding shares of common stock after adjusting for the potential dilution of securities that could be converted into common stock, which right now is not much. Then you have your operating expense, which is 607.6 million. The company's total operating expenses, including salaries, rent, and other costs associated with running the business. Operating income comes in at 50,400,000, which is the profit realized from business operations after deducting operating expenses. The published date of this financial report was 2/28, which is the last earnings, and the next earnings again is scheduled for the 5th, so this will all update after the next earnings report. Their total revenue is $990 million, which is the total income generated by a business during a given period of selling general and administrative expenses. Oh, I'm sorry, that's a separate metric. So the total revenue was $990 million, which again is the total income generated by a business during this last earnings period, which is roughly 90 days. Then the selling/general/administrative expenses come in at 281.5 million, which are the expenses incurred by a business that are not directly related to production. Total extraordinary items came in with none. Total revenue is 990.9 million. Again, total income generated by a business during a given period, including sales, discounts, and returns. Then here's all of your cash expenditures and cash from financing, cash from operating. You're welcome to pause this if you want to read this and what all these mean. Then we have financing cash flow items, foreign exchange effects, issuance, retirement of debt, net, which is 51.1 million. If you want to, again, pause this to read all of this, you can. Obviously, no dividends paid. Non-cash items, 78.7 million. Net income is negative 287.7 million. Net change in cash comes in at negative 51.4 million. Then we have the balance sheet data, which comes in at accounts payable for 330.5 million, accounts receivable 166.6 million. Again, if you want to pause this, go right ahead. There's a lot of stuff on here. I'm not going to read it verbatim, but it does provide some insight into their financial situation. Then we have more here. There's quite a bit. I think there's over 60 metrics here that you're looking at. One thing to mention is the long-term debt, which comes in at 5.1 billion. The portion of the company's debt that is due after the next year, so that would be this fiscal year. Other current assets total is 37.8 million, which is the total value of other current assets such as inventory, prepaid expenses, and other miscellaneous assets, maybe some like high crop, things like that. So their liabilities come in at 4.8 billion, and their equity is negative 77 million. This is a problem for the company, obviously, but with the reverse split coming up and some of the other things that they have working on, you never know, but it's no secret that right now they are not in the best financial position. Retained earnings, again, are negative 7.5 billion, which is the portion of the company's profits that have been retained for future use rather than paid out as dividends. You have PPE total net, which is 5.5 billion, which is the total value of the company's property, plant, and equipment after depreciation. Then we get into the exchange volume. Today, the ADF accounted for 43.86% of the market share. Again, it dominated every other exchange by a metric shit ton, nearly double the amount or almost triple the amount of the second closest exchange, which was the NASDAQ. Coming in third was the NYSE with 10%. And then after the NYSE, not any exchange had over 10% of market share for AMC volume today. Again, ADF just destroyed everything with 43.86% market share. Next, we have the capital flow. Your small players saw a the small players saw a net flow of $439,843 in. So out of the inflow versus outflow, when you do the net flow, total surplus of 439 million today. Sorry, 439,000. Jesus. Medium players, you saw a increase of 348,515. Large net flow came in at minus 585,000. Then you had retail inflow beat retail outflow. I didn't get around to calculating that one. Sorry. Just about a million. Looks like about 800,000 surplus. Your major players, you saw a decrease of 585, 147, which looks to be like these new large, and major are all the same category. So roughly speaking, same number, negative 585, $147 out. Then we have the option stats. Highest buy volume option today came in at 18,000 volume for symbol AMC $5 call, expiring today. So most volume came in 0 DTE today. Likely a bunch of institutions selling calls, I would imagine, if it closed, especially under that $5 mark. You have the highest sell volume at AMC put, expiring 421, which is kind of funny, which almost doubled the buy volume today, the highest buy volume symbol. The highest open interest came in with symbol AMC $3 put, expiring 7/21/2023. The highest implied volatility comes in at 300 something odd percent, which is likely going to be, July 21st for the AMC $10 put. And I think that's it. The power of data, man. That was a lot of shit to go through. But yeah, there's all of your AMC data for today's recap. Again, all of this is for today other than the financial data and the short interest data, which is updated once or twice a month. Everything else was today's data, like the capital flow, option stats, the short interest, not today. All of this stuff is from today. All of this is from today. All of this is from today. So there you have it. AMC data view. Data is badass.